But the left's racism doesn't stop there. They're also busy targeting minority kids in school with their Marxist critical race theory. As your liberty-loving Latino, I couldn't be prouder to see patriots of color standing up to this hate-filled ideology being shoved down our kids' throats. Patriots like Derek Wilburn.
I am the direct descendant of the North American slave trade. Both my parents are black, all 4 of my grandparents are black, all 8 of my great-great-grandparents, all 16 of my great-greats. On my mother's side, my ancestors were enslaved in Alabama. On my father's side, we were enslaved in Texas. I am not oppressed. I'm not oppressed, and I'm not a victim.
Amen. Mr. Wilburn wasn't done there. After rejecting the false victimhood being pushed by socialist white folk like Biden, Pelosi, Schumer, and communists like Bernie Sanders, Mr. Wilburn went for the jugular of Marxist thought.
I travel all across this country of ours, and I check into hotels, and I fly commercially, and I walk into retail establishments, and I order food in restaurants. I go wherever I want, whenever I want. I am treated with kindness, dignity, and respect, literally from coast to coast. I have 3 children. They are not oppressed either, although they are victims. I've taught my children they are victims of 3 things: their own ignorance, their own laziness, and their own poor decision-making.
You know, Joe Biden just got through blaming Donald Trump, American citizens who Biden left behind in Afghanistan, and the Afghan army for Biden's massive debacle in that country. In contrast, Mr. Wilburn there is raising his kids to take personal responsibility, the antithesis of socialist Democrat thought.
Putting critical race theory into our classrooms is taking our nation in the wrong direction. Racism in America would by and large be dead today if it were not for certain people and institutions keeping it on life support. And sadly, very sadly, one of those institutions is the American education system.
That is right. The government education system dominated and run by socialist, anti-American leftists. In fact, the entire Socialist Party is dedicated to division. They need us at each other's throats. They need us not unified behind our country, not unified behind our Constitution, not unified behind a common set of American values, values that our, real Americans know are not born of bigotry or discrimination. As we've seen in the debate over abortion, the pullout of Afghanistan, or the introduction of the poison that is critical race theory into our classrooms, the division that's pushed by socialist Democrats leads to nowhere but death and ruin. Now, we're going to talk to Mr. Wilburn a little bit later on in the program. But for now, let's get to your top stories. Let racism die the death it deserves. That was Mr. Wilburn's message. And it's a good one. And the only people keeping it alive in the United States are left-wingers. Joining me now is that father, entrepreneur, and executive director of Rocky Mountain Black Conservatives and People of Color Capital Interns, Derek Wilburn, and retired Milwaukee County Sheriff, Newsmax contributor, and author of Cop Under Fire, David Clarke. Gentlemen, welcome to you both. Derek, I want to begin with you. You said, quote, "Let racism die the death it deserves." The speech you gave at your county's school board meeting last month you got right to the heart of the matter. The left is the only entity keeping racism alive in America because they benefit from it politically. Am I wrong?
You are not wrong. I basically said, look, I'm not oppressed. My children aren't oppressed, and I raised victors, not victims. And the left is furious with me about that. It's almost as if I had said, this country stinks, it's irreversibly racist, I'm oppressed, and I'm raising children to believe they are too, I'd be the left's hero. But I didn't sing that tune. And, here's what you see around America. Everywhere, every city USA. You walk down the street and you see people of color. Junior is out front sweeping the sidewalk. Open the door, mom is standing there at the hostess station seating people at the tables. Daughter is waiting on the tables. Dad's in the kitchen cooking the food. Grandpa's washing the dishes. And they're just here making it happen. And they're here making it happen because they can, because there is so little oppression and so much opportunity that they can hardly even believe it, especially compared to where they came from. And that's why they come to this country, because we do not have oppression. We have opportunity.
Yep, Sheriff, there is some oppression out there, and it's coming from the left. Huge win for life yesterday. The Texas heartbeat law went into effect. Statistics are really heartbreaking. Planned Parenthood, as you well know, targets minority communities. Here's White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki openly admitting that abortion is aimed at a designated demographic. Listen.
You talk about equity, if I may interrupt. How is it equity? How is it fighting systemic racism when abortion, we well know, disproportionately affects minority children?
Again, funding cannot be used from this for abortion, but access to health care in communities that have been marginalized, underserved, adversely affected by persistent poverty is always going to be something the president fights for.
86% of Planned Parenthood clinics are set up inside of minority communities. Sheriff, not a good look for the party that alleges to have minorities' best interests at heart, huh?
No, in fact, it is known that Planned Parenthood targets the black community. Some of the figures that come out related to abortion are genocidal in nature. There's no doubt about it. Here's some stats from the CDC, yes, the Center for Disease Control. It says black women abort at almost 4 times the rate of white women. Between 2010 and 2016, 1.7 million black babies were murdered through the practice of abortion. I get a kick out of how Jen Psaki and other progressive Democrats like to couch abortion around the term of health care. These people do not provide health care. They kill black children.
Gentlemen, I want to ask you both this question, get you both to weigh in on this. It is my opinion that the government-run education system is part of the problem in this country. This is the reason why we get dullards like Biden elected. Derek, don't we need school choice in this country?
We need it desperately. What began as a single cabinet seat in the Carter administration, one single cabinet seat, Department of Education, is now a department with thousands of employees and billions of dollars of budget. It's a runaway train. And what people have forgotten is that the purpose of the public school system is to assist parents in the education of their children, not the other way around. Those buildings are paid for with our tax dollars. Those administrators and teachers are paid for with our tax dollars. They're our schools and they're our kids. And if they're going to fail, then the truth is competition always benefits the consumer. And they're determined to keep competition out. They don't want competition. They don't want school choice because they're stamping out these little neo-Marxists just as fast as they possibly can.
100%. Sheriff Clarke, got about 30 seconds. Go, sir.
K-12 public education in the urban centers, the ghettos, are the true systemic racism in America as these young black children are shackled to these failing school systems. You look at the math scores, the reading scores, the graduation rates among the worst in the nation, yet the Democrats who claim to want to help black people keep these children, will not allow these parents to have a lifeline to a better education. It's the only vehicle to upward mobility in the United States of America, to be properly educated.
Derek Wilburn, Sheriff David Clarke. Gentlemen, great to have you. We'll talk again soon. When we come back, podcast